What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sons of Sever YouTube channel, where there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. My name is Eric. Today my brother Chris and I are going to be reviewing the Xero Shoes Ridgeway Chelsea, and we're excited about it. It's the first Chelsea boot that we're reviewing this season. We're going to have 4 or 5 Chelsea boots that we review throughout the fall and the winter, and this is the first one. At the end of all those reviews, we're going to do a big compilation video too, so keep an eye out for that one. But we're going to get into it. Chris and I are going to go back and forth talking about the things that we like and that we don't like about this boot. There's timestamps in the description if you want to jump around, but I'm going to send it over to him now to get you started off with his likes.
Getting into my likes of the Ridgeway Chelsea from Xero, the first thing that I want to mention is how they have taken the Chelsea boot and they have re-ruggedized it. The reason I say re-ruggedized is because as I've been researching Chelsea boots, I noticed that they've actually been used for some more rugged uses in the past. There are farmers out there that do their field work in Chelsea boots, or at least they used to. Obviously now the more typical lace-up farmer boot is more popular for those kinds of things, but I think that this style was co-opted to be more dressy and to be more casual. I like that Xero's bringing it back and making these things rugged again by adding that nice outsole, the Ridgeway outsole, which is actually not an outsole that we loved for the Ridgeway itself. We had some issues with that boot, but I think that this is a more appropriate boot in order to have that Ridgeway outsole, a Chelsea that you could possibly hike in. The other like that I want to mention is I think they did a good job with the stack height balance on this specific shoe. Again, going back to the original Ridgeway hiking boot, we thought that it wasn't enough stack height for a hardcore hiking boot. For a Chelsea boot that you could possibly take on a little bit of hiking, I think that this Ridgeway outsole gives it a good stack height balance. There's good ground feel. There's also plenty of traction for the kinds of hikes you would want to take a hiking Chelsea boot out on. It's not going too hard. It's also not too minimal for what I think this boot is purposed for, and I really like that balance. With my likes out of the way, now I'm going to pass things back over to Eric to talk about what he likes about the Ridgeway Chelsea.
Okay, so getting into my likes with the Xero Shoes Ridgeway Chelsea, the thing that I like most about this boot is just the way that it looks. It really is a good looking shoe, and for Xero Shoes, that's a really big deal because historically their shoes have been kind of ugly and kind of weird. They always had that Hirachi strap that came around the back, and when they started making their dressier options, I said from the get-go, it's like, you have to drop that or else your shoes are just going to stay ugly. And luckily, they have started doing that. So the leather Dylan that we got over the summer and we've already reviewed doesn't have that strap. And it's kind of a direction that the company seems to be going in for a lot of their models. So I am happy with the way that this thing looks. And then the next thing is just that it's made out of a full grain leather. It seems like a pretty nice leather that should last as long as you take care of it. But as far as my likes go, that's kind of where I stop. There's a lot to get into with the dislikes of the boot, so if you need to, you can jump forward to that spot. We do want to mention some affiliates before we get going with our dislikes, and Xero Shoes is an affiliate of ours. They have a very wide variety of shoes, so if this one isn't hitting the mark for you, go and check out their running shoes and their other casual shoes because they really do have a lot to offer. And then if you take a look behind me and look at all these boxes and different brands, we've got links for pretty much all of these brands. Check them out in the description. It really helps out the channel a lot to put more gear into our hands and more reviews out to you.
Getting into my dislikes of the boot, the first thing that I want to mention is I think Xero's sizing chart is a little bit off, at least for us. I am typically a 10.5 straight across the board. I've started getting 11s in certain styles from certain companies, and that's been working out really well for me. Xero might be one of those companies that I need to start working on with that because these things are just too tight. They're too tight to the point where I might actually go with an 11.5 if I were to get these again. They just seem to be running a little bit small. We had this issue with the Dylan as well, which we reviewed over the summer. I seem to be having the same issue here. Also, the volume on this thing is just tough. It is definitely squishing down on my foot. I have a more medium arched foot, so if you have a medium or high arched foot, that might be something to consider. I even took out the insoles, and that didn't seem to help me all that much. The other thing that I want to mention is the shape of this thing. In my opinion, Xero Shoes in general aren't all that foot shaped. I think that varies from style to style. It doesn't seem like their shape is perfectly consistent. They kind of go for the same-ish shape across the board on all their shoes, but if you're looking for a foot-shaped Chelsea boot, this definitely isn't the one, in my opinion.
All right, so let's start unpacking those dislikes. Like I said in my likes, there's quite a bit here to go through. The first thing that I'll say about this is it's not wide enough. This is a pretty narrow fitting shoe when you compare it to a lot of the other shoes that are in this same category, like the Lems Chelsea or even the Jim Green Barefoot Stockman that we have. This one feels the most restricting in the toe box. So it is a nice shape. I think that it's foot shaped, which is great because it's not like a traditional pointy Chelsea, but for whatever reason, it is definitely not wide enough. We found the sizing to be off as well. You need to go up at least a half size, if not a full size. If you're gonna wear this through the winter and wanna wear like thick socks, definitely a full size. I got this in a US size 9, which I always do, and it does not fit very well. My toes are definitely pushing up against the edge of it. There's also the insole, which this is the same insole that was on the Ridgeway hiking boot that they came out with last year, and you can see it's got all these perforations down at the bottom, and the top layer is really thin. And so it just feels like there's sand or dirt in the boot at all times to my feet. I really don't like these insoles, and I had to take it out anyways because there wasn't enough volume in the toe box either. It felt like my toes were pushing up against the top of the shoe constantly unless I removed the insole, and then they've got a little bit more room. We also found it to be pretty stiff out of the box, especially this back part here. It goes kind of high up on your calf, and it's not comfortable unless you've got socks that go above that level, and it definitely took some break-in on this part back here to be comfortable. And then there's the outsole. We talk about this with the Ridgeway boot too, but this really just isn't a very sticky rubber, and I don't think the traction pattern works the way that they want it to, and I suspect that it's this outside ridge right here. I think it just makes too much of a level surface that you're stepping on, and there just isn't enough to grip. So we find this not to be a super well performing outsole. Like, it's not terrible, it's definitely not good, and it's not very good when it gets wet. I did not feel very stable as I was walking around in wet conditions with this thing. And then that brings me to the water resistance, which it is a little bit water resistant, but it is definitely not waterproof, which is kind of a shame for a hiking Chelsea boot, because if you're gonna make a Chelsea boot to go out into nature with, why not make it waterproof like other brands have? Again, with the Lems waterproof Chelsea boot, this elastic bit is waterproof. At least we found it to be highly water resistant. But when I put this Chelsea into the water, it took about 10 to 15 seconds of water going right there before my socks started to get wet. So that's a little bit of a letdown as well.
Getting into my final opinion on the Xero Ridgeway Chelsea. This boot really only does one thing well compared to the other Chelsea boots that we have tried so far this fall and winter. Obviously, those reviews are yet to come. This is the first one we are knocking out here so far. The only thing this thing excels at compared to the other Chelsea boots is going to be that flexibility. And even then, I think the Feelgrounds Chelsea either does a better job or does just as well when it comes to that aspect. I would say that these definitely look good, so I'll echo that like from Eric. I think they are a good looking boot, but it doesn't matter how good looking they are because I just can't stand to wear them. I don't find them particularly comfortable. The volume is really low. They are not waterproof, and I personally think every Chelsea boot should be. Not all the ones we're reviewing this year are, but I think they should be because a Chelsea boot is meant for the part of the year where things are a little bit more slushy and wet. So that's definitely going to be a knock-off point for this, especially when they were trying to go for a more rugged Chelsea with that Ridgeway outsole included. That's kind of the thing that sets this thing apart. They then didn't make it waterproof, which is kind of odd to me. So again, I think the other companies that have rugged Chelsea boots out there are probably going to be a better option for you in the end, unless you're a Xero diehard, in which case go for it. We have a link to Xero down in the description because we do like some of their shoes. I personally just don't like this one.
Alright, so when it comes to my final opinion of this boot, I am a little bit disappointed with it because it does look really good. Like I said, I think it's the best looking shoe that Xero has come out with so far, but it does not perform well enough for me to want to use it casually or out on the trail, honestly. Casually, I don't wear this just because it's very tight on my foot. That is not wide enough in the toe box for me. And then out on the trail, this outsole really isn't that great, and it's not waterproof. So there's just a few things here that I think that they need to fix, and if they fixed them, then this would be an awesome boot. If they kept this same look, but they widened out the toe box, they made it waterproof, maybe changed up the outsole too, I would appreciate that, then they would definitely have something. But for me, this one is a bit of a misfire from Xero. It's got a lot of areas that it needs to improve before I would recommend it for somebody.
Folks, if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. All those things really help the channel out. If you're interested in any of the products that we talked about in this video, there will be links to them down in the description. If we have discount codes for any of those companies, they will be featured with the links. If you want to get more content from us, there are 3 different places you can get it. The first one is Patreon, where for $1 a month, you can get exclusive behind-the-scenes content we don't post anywhere else. If you want to be most up to date with what we are working on, make sure to follow us on Instagram, where we are constantly posting unboxing videos. Go follow us on Strava if you're interested in seeing mini reviews in real time of the products we're using and what we're using them for. Strava allows you to track and post about your different activities. We track and post about our runs, trail runs, hikes, paddleboarding, and weightlifting, and we do little mini reviews on the products we're using during those activities. Go follow us there, and we will follow you back. We appreciate your view, and as always, we will catch you in the mountains.